Well, good morning, Central. Welcome to church. Today's an amazing day. It's Vision Sunday. If you're watching online or here with us, why don't we gather and sing some songs? This is the day that you have made. Whatever comes, I won't complain. For all my hope is in your name, and now your joy awaits my praise. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing, Lord, I am grateful. Brought me out and set my feet on higher ground. So here I stand, you are my God. Faithfulness, my solid rock. Come on, sing it. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing, Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing, Lord, I am grateful. And as we lift our hands up, heaven's open, heaven's open. So let our lives declare the love our God has spoken over us. And as we lift our hands, the heavens open, heavens open. So let our lives declare the love our God has spoken over I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing, Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing, Lord, I am grateful.
What you do, God. Yes, God, we thank you. We thank you for the battles you've won, God, and for the battles or the possibilities that we are about to face. We're going to sing the song that we wrote that just talks about that we have a God who will make a way. He will make a way through that impossibility in your life. We believe that. We're going to declare that today. Sing this out. I'm not alone. You walked this road before, and when I'm weak, you give me strength to stand. I'm not afraid. Still, I will dare to hope again. Still, I will dare to hope again.
How many believe that this morning? We just believe that there is a God that no matter what you've come into this place with this morning, that there is a God who is a God of the impossible. That whatever circumstance that you face, that God is bigger than it. And so we celebrate that truth, that it's not just wishful thinking, it's not just hopeful thinking. We believe it's set in reality that God is a God of the impossible. So whatever you're facing today, may you be reminded that God is bigger than it. He's bigger than it, and you can trust Him this morning. Why don't you go ahead and grab a seat? Thank you so much for being with us today. How's everybody feeling? Feeling good? How many of you are tired after your first week of school? You're like, lunches, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. For those of you that are parents, you would understand that joke. The rest of you, just ignore it. I'm Justin, I'll be your host today, and the awkward jokes will be from me, and so glad that you could be with us. If it is your first time with us, we want to just take a moment and acknowledge you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you would just do us a giant favor, there's a card in front of you that says Connect Card. And we would love to do just that. We'd love to connect with you. And if we could serve you in any way, we'd love to be able to do that. And so if you fill out that card, bring it to the big blue wall in the lobby, Central Connect. And we'd love to put a gift in your hands and just say thanks. And if we could help you and serve you in any way, we'd love the privilege to be able to do that. So thank you so much for being with us. Again, we know that it takes a lot of courage to step into a new space. I know what that feels like. It's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. We hope you feel comfortable and at home. So thank you so much for being with us today. At this time, I'm going to invite our host to come. And we're going to give together. And as we do, I want to just encourage you, if you are part of our regular family, you're a regular giving partner here at Central, we want to thank you for all that you do. And thank you for being generous, because we believe, as we're going to hear today, generosity is actually the key to living free, how to live the best life. And so if you are brand new, feel no obligation to give. Just be our guest. We really mean that. But if you do want to give, there are several ways that you can give on the screen as well. I want to just let you know about a few things. Fall is underway here at Central, and we got a lot on the go. And I want to just highlight a few of them, because I don't want you to miss out on a few of the things that we're really excited about. The first one is tonight. If you are a volunteer, we have 867 volunteers and growing here at Central, and everyone is important. And so we want to encourage you to come back tonight, 5 o'clock. We're going to feed you. We're going to feed your kids, which is also a bonus if you're a parent. That means you don't have to make dinner, just helping you fill in the blank there. You can join us at 5 to 7. We're going to get out of here before your kids have to go to bed. But we want to celebrate the vision that is here at Central. We want to encourage you as a volunteer, sort of let you know what's happening this fall. And so if you are a volunteer, please be here tonight, 5 o'clock. We'd love to honor you tonight as well. So mark that on your calendar. Also want to let you know, next week is our kickoff Sunday. And if you've ever been around Central for any length of time, you would know that our kickoff is one of our big three. It's a big deal. We've been working really hard. But it's only as good as you bringing somebody with you. It's designed for you to bring a friend with you. So if you haven't been thinking of somebody, bring somebody with you. It's going to be fantastic. And also leading up to that, we have our week of prayer, which is starting tomorrow. So if you're like me, you're off to the rat race of life a little bit when fall hits. This is a great way to just focus in and sort of take time to just prioritize what really matters. And so every morning, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we're going to be meeting here. And then culminating on Saturday, we're going to have prayer and pancakes with extra gluten. And so that's going to be great. Just kidding. That was a joke as well. I don't know if you can even do that. But anyways, we're going to be having prayer and pancakes at 9 o'clock on Saturday. And it's going to be fantastic together as well. Next two things I want to just let you know about is several years ago, we did a thing called a chat survey. And the reason we did that was for just us to be able to continue to do a good job of listening, to say, how can we keep doing a better job as a church, serving you, serving our community? And so if you've ever felt like nobody listens to you, you're just in a big church that nobody cares, we do actually care. So we want to encourage you. This week, we're going to be sending out an email on Thursday. For those of you that receive regular emails, you will get that, or you can fill out the card. And on that email, it's going to tell you, it'll give you a link to fill out this survey called the Chat Survey. And it's called the Church Health Assessment Tool. And so if you would do us a favor, fill that out. It would really help us serve you. We really want to listen to you. And we're going to sort of unpack that in November. But if you could just not delete that email, that would be amazing. And just
actually do the survey, there are some prizes you can win as well and things like that. So make sure you do check that out. And last thing I want to let you know about is Encounters. We are starting up Encounters again, end of the month, September 24th, 2 weeks away. And so if you don't know what that is, we're going to take a little different format this year. We're actually going to stretch you if you're a contemplator or an activist, if you're into learning, if you're into socializing, if you're into, whatever it is, the way that you connect to God, we're going to help stretch you in some areas. And so that'll be an hour for you to encounter God, happening 2 weeks away from today, September 24th, 6 p.m. And so with that, we're going to continue in our Vision Sunday. And as we do, why don't you take a look at the screens as we do.
In a world of skepticism and doubt, I believe in God. In a world of hate and isolation, I believe in community. In a world of insecurity and brokenness, I believe in you. This is what it means to be the church. I believe in the Niagara region. I believe that we live in a place of opportunity and hope. I believe that we are not defined by our past or current realities, but rather by the truth that God has a plan for our cities, our region, our province, our nation, and our world. This is what it means to be the church. I believe that God wants each of us to find our created purpose. I believe that God wants to build a community where this purpose is expressed in unconditional love and acceptance. I believe that this love and acceptance will direct people back to a God who is great. This is what it means to be the church. I believe that God has ordained this moment in time to reveal His glory. I believe that He has chosen you to see the needs around you so that, moved by compassion, you are propelled into action. I believe that God has strategically placed you where you work, learn, and play to be an influence for good. This is what it means to be the church. Therefore, as the church, we will not shrink back. We will not surrender. We will go until there is nowhere else to go and serve until we have no more strength to serve. We will give until our hearts are empty of everything but love. And we will do this until the whole world knows there is a God who loves without limit. We will be His church. Have you ever done something that took your breath away? This summer, we had the amazing opportunity as a family to visit some of my wife's ancestry in Norway. If many of you don't know, maybe Carlene is Scandinavian, and so we decided as a family to go to Norway. And in one of these little communities called Stavanger, I just love to say that, Stavanger, there was this hike to this place called Pulpit Rock. Now, we had done some research, and so we knew about this hike. It's about a 4-hour hike. And at the top of this hike is this supposedly breathtaking view. And it did take our breath away in a couple of ways. And so as we began this journey, again, we started and we're fairly fit and adventurous, and so it began great. We were meandering through these meadows, and even where the water got a little swampy, they built these amazing boardwalks for us. And so it was just a fantastic leisurely stroll. And we're thinking, this is going to be a piece of cake. Until we hit what they call the steps. And at the steps, literally these monks, you can't even see or appreciate the grade. These monks have chiseled out of stone these steps that are about 2 feet high, 2 feet deep. And you go straight up for about 10 to 15 minutes, only to find out that this is the first of 4 steps. So when you get to the top of the steps, then you're faced with a new kind of orientation. There's this area with no marking, no delineation, no wayfinding. It's just kind of I guess we're going that way. You just kind of walk through, and then when you get over this crest, you see it, the top of Pulpit Rock. It is breathtaking. I mean, your breath is already gone, but it just this moment where you're standing on top of this fjord cut through the rocks. It is rugged, it is beautiful, it is stunning. Now I have a confession that Pulpit Rock is actually a cliff that is 2 kilometers straight down. I did not have the internal fortitude to sit on that ledge. My children did, and my prayer life went through the roof. I was just thinking, if I go home without my children, I can never go back to my wife ever again. So I took this on a little smaller one. It's only about 4 feet. But you get the idea. It was breathtaking. Here's what I've learned about life. I've learned that life is full of all kinds of paths. Sometimes life is pretty easy and it feels great. The view is stunning, it's leisurely, you can walk with others. Sometimes life is really difficult. You have to walk up steep inclines. When we were coming down, I remember meeting people at each one of the levels of the steps, and they would always ask me, am I almost there? Am I almost there? And I did not have the heart to tell them, no, you're not even close. So what I did instead is I just kept telling them, oh, but it's worth it. You know, just keep going. I know it's hard, but you can make it. You can do this. The view is breathtaking. Sometimes we need someone just to remind us. And there are other times when we don't really know where we're going. There's no real clear orientation. We're just kind of walking in towards a certain direction. But I have learned one thing about life. The one thing that will keep you going, the one thing that will get you out of bed in the morning, the one thing that will make everything else you do make sense is when you have a God-sized vision for your life. And when you have a God-sized vision for your life, He takes your breath away every day. So we as a church have a God-sized vision. And it is big. It is bigger than any one of us. It is bigger than any one of us can do alone. This God-sized vision is to see the world transformed by God's love. That's it. We just believe that there is a God who is great, as we've already sung and declared, who loves us just the way we are, but loves us too much to leave us that way. We also believe that God has a purpose and a destiny for every human being, that you're on this planet at this time in history, living where you live, going to school where you go to school, working where you work for a reason. And when you tap into that reason, there will be Monday mornings when you wake up and you'll ask, am I almost there yet? And the answer may be no, but it's worth it. So what is this God-sized vision we have for our church? This is what I want to talk to you about this morning. And if you're here with us and this is your first time, or you're kind of new, or you're watching online or on Facebook Live, if you are watching on Facebook Live, would you help us by sharing that today? And also if you're watching online, just let us know where you're watching from. That would be awesome. But today we're going to talk about how we as a church function. And so if you're kind of new, this is going to kind of be a family discussion. It's going to be, remember when you were a kid and you went to your friend's house and they had a family talk and you were there? And it was like, okay, all right. We're just inviting you into a family conversation because we're so glad that you are here. We want you to be a part of our lives and we want to be a part of yours. This is what it means to be a family. But we need to talk about this. I love the way John Maxwell put it. He said, everything worthwhile is uphill. Unfortunately, we sometimes have uphill hopes with downhill habits. And this doesn't only happen for us as individuals, it also happens for us as a family, as churches. And so we're going to talk about the uphill challenge and the vision that's worth it today. You know, it's funny, when it comes to church, everyone has kind of their preconceived ideas, right? If I were to ask you, what is the church? We could potentially have in this room alone 1,000 different opinions or ideas, especially watching all around the world. And our opinion, our definition is formed by past experience, good or bad, what we've been informed by social media or the media, by what we've heard from others, and our own experiences. And so for all of us, we have this idea of what the church really is. And it can get a little contentious. As a matter of fact, if I were to ask you what the church is, you and I might disagree. And this is why we have many denominations, because people don't get along. And so they say, we'll just do it our own way. And so we might not agree. So what is the church? I love it when people say naively, oh, I just wish we could go back to the church of the early church, the first church. And I think to myself, have you read the Bible? Like, the early church was a bit of a mess. I mean, there are people dying in the service. That was one church service. There are people fighting over all kinds of things. There was this one group of people, they were circumcised. If you don't know what that is, ask your neighbor. Don't look it up on the internet. Circumcised, and there's another group uncircumcised. And so there was this argument, who's in, who's out, who's right, who's wrong, what's black, what's white. And so they were fighting over this. And obviously, if you're a full-grown man and someone comes to tells you you have to get circumcised, you may have a problem with that. And so there was a bit of a fight around that. And then there was food sacrificed to idols. Some people said you could eat it, others said you couldn't. And so there was a bit of fight about that. And the role of women. Can women come into church at all? Do they have to cover their heads? Can they speak? There was all this division and all this fighting. And so Paul writes this really profound and deep response to what the church really is. And it's not a system, and it's not a structure, and it's not a style, and it's not a preference. It's a heartbeat. It's a heartbeat. And we may disagree or be different in some of our methodology or approach, but we have to be the same in our heartbeat. And so here's what he says in response to what the church is. If you have your Bibles, you can turn with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. If you don't have your Bible today, that's all right. It will be on the screen. But if you do have a Bible or you have a mobile device and you can flip up the YouVersion app, I'd actually encourage you to go to 1 Corinthians 9, verse 19, because we're going to live in this text the whole morning. But here's what he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 19. He says, though I am free and belong to no one. I love that statement. See, here's the problem. When I try to put my religious expectations upon you, I make you a slave. When I tell you how you should do it and shouldn't do it, I put an expectation, a yoke of slavery on you that you were not designed to carry. Jesus came to set us free from every other expectation, to be totally free. Now, I know people say, oh, you can't say that, Bill, because people will take advantage of that. They'll say, oh, I can do whatever I want. Hey, listen, no. When you love somebody, it takes care of itself. Okay? I love vacuuming. Not because I love vacuuming, but because I love my wife. I love doing dishes. Believe me, it's not because I love doing dishes. It's because I love my wife. You see, when love rules your heart, you do things that you wouldn't normally do. It actually confines you, but in a way that motivates and uplifts you rather than crushes you. And so Paul says, I am free. I have been freed by Christ. He loves me just the way I am. He knows everything about me. And he loves me unconditionally. Yes, it's true. He loves me too much to leave me that way. And that's what love does. Love comes alongside. Love encourages. Love cheers on. Says, you can be better. I believe it in you. I see it in you. Love self-corrects. So Paul says, listen, the moment we start telling each other what we should and shouldn't do because of our own convictions, we've missed the freedom that Christ came to give us. Though I am free and belong to no one, here's what I've done. I've made myself a slave to everyone. A slave? Why? To win as many as possible. He goes on to say, I have become all things. It's interesting. The Greek word for all is all. I've become all things to all people. You mean the ones I like, right? You mean the ones who think like me, right? You mean the ones who agree with me, right? No. All things to all people, so that by all possible means. Oh, come on, no. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. No. By all possible means, I might save some. I do all of this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. I love his phrase, I've become all things to all people, that by all possible means I might save some. If I were to pick a theme verse for my life and for the church that I want to be a part of, it would be this verse. And I think Paul, when he's thinking and writing this, is thinking back to when Jesus came into our world, and he taught about the reality of the power of the one who has lost their way. He told it in a series of stories. One time he told it as a story of 100 sheep and a shepherd who has 99 in a pen, but one is lost. So he leaves the 99 to go after the one. He tells them the story of a woman who doesn't have very much wealth, and so she has 10 coins, and so she loses one. So she puts the 9 aside and spends all of her energy to find the one. He tells it in the story of a father who has 2 sons. One son takes his inheritance early and squanders it and leaves the father and finds himself destitute, only to realize he needs to come back home, and the father is there with open arms. See, everything Jesus taught was that everyone matters. Everyone. No matter what their background, no matter what their religion, no matter what their preferences, no matter what their orientation, no matter where they've come from, no matter what they believe, everyone matters to God. And so they should matter to us. And so we've made our mission statement inviting people into a life that matters. Jesus was incredibly invitational. He got himself in trouble all the time for this, especially by the religious leaders. If you say, man, Jesus seems a little bit angry, yeah, he was angry at people who put their religious expectations on people, who excluded people because they weren't like them, who said, until you check off all of these boxes, you're not good enough for God. He said, stop it. God's love is for everybody. And so he went to places he wasn't supposed to go, and he hung out with people he wasn't supposed to hang out with. He was willing to be called a drunkard and a friend of sinners, which to us doesn't seem that big, but in that day, that was a really big, slanderous term. Jesus, you're just a friend of sinners. He was willing to touch lepers. He was willing to say, women caught in adultery, I forgive you. Go and sin no more. He's willing to be found in tax collectors' houses who were like the scum of the earth in that day. Why? Because he wanted to invite them into a life that matters. What is a life that matters? It's a life driven and focused by the love of God. You take love out of the equation, and it no longer matters. So we decided that we were going to be a church that invited everybody into a life that matters. And part of this is inspired by my own story. Today, you're going to hear a lot of things that if you've been a part of our church for a while, you've heard before. But again, sometimes we just need to be reminded. My mom was born on the wrong side of the tracks. She was born in a home where both her parents were alcoholics, and they were angry alcoholics. They were abusive. By the time my mom was 8 years old, she had 3 siblings. She was the oldest. She recalls the stories of when she would hear her mom and dad coming home from a party with their friends or from the bar with their friends, and she would huddle her brothers and her sister in a closet, and they would hide until everyone passed out in the living room. And then she would crawl out and try to find food to feed her brother and sister. This is my mom's story. She had never been told that you're beautiful, you're valuable, that you matter. Never. Until one day, a little girl knocked on her door and invited her to this church, and I'm eternally grateful for this little church that allowed my mom to come broken and shattered without having any idea about the Bible or who Jesus was. And for the first time she heard, you're valuable. There's someone who loves you so much that he's willing to die for you. And so that transformed my entire family. She came, and then my grandparents came to church, my uncles, my aunts, and their families. It changed the course of history. We went from a family that was broken by alcoholism, by abuse, this vicious cycle. There are still some generational things we're working through, believe me. It's not an instant process, but God began our family for generations on a journey to restoration, to where now her grandchildren, my mom's grandchildren, believe that they were created with purpose and destiny. From the time they were born, they've been told you are loved and valuable, not because of what you do, but because of who you belong to. And God wants to do that for everyone. And so we will not compromise. We will not compromise on our mission. It's true. There are times in this journey where it's awesome, it's great, it's fun, everyone's on board, you're walking, but there are also times when it seems like a great uphill battle, when people don't understand and people are critical. Your words cut, they hurt, they wound, and you wonder, is this worth it? Maybe I should just pack it in. Maybe I should just give up. It's easier just doing my own thing. Loving people is hard work. There are times when you don't know exactly what to do. You're doing your very best and you feel like maybe you're not going the right direction, but you just keep choosing the way of love. This is what we are as a church. And so this morning I want to walk through our core values. There's actually a card in the seat in front of you. I want you all to take that out. You're welcome to take this home with you today, but if you're just going to throw it in recycling, because I know you wouldn't throw it in the garbage. If you're just going to throw it in recycling, just leave it here for the next person. But these core values I want to walk through, and for us, these core values are like guardrails. If you've ever driven through a mountain pass, you're very grateful for guardrails, because if you go off the road, you die. It's not an option. When there's a 2,000-foot cliff on one side, it's not like you recover from that. And so guardrails keep you on the road. And so for us as a church, we recognize there are many things that you could do. There are many ways that you could do it. And I know that some people are even obnoxious enough to say there's a right way and a wrong way. Oh, I like that preacher. I hate that preacher. I love the way this church does worship. I hate that worship style. We're obnoxious, and yet we don't understand that we are all on the same heartbeat of love must win. And so these core values are our guardrails that just keep us moving in the right direction. So the first question that our core values answer is, who are we? Who are we? Maybe you're here and you're like, who is this group of people? You came in and we're singing intensely passionate. You didn't expect that. And people are raising their hands and shouting and singing, and you're like, what is this group of people? I'll tell you what we are. We're followers of Jesus. We just believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We just believe that he is the one who invites us into a life that matters, that without him, we don't even know what that is. And so in 1 Corinthians 9, Paul says, I am free and belong to no one. In another letter, Galatians chapter 5, he says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. The reason Jesus died was so you could be free. The reason he came into this world was so you could be free. So stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. What is he talking about? This word stand firm, Paul borrows from the Roman world, where soldiers were taught to fight in units. Up to this point in time, people just kind of ran at each other and hit each other with clubs. The Romans came along and said, actually, there's a better way. What if we all kind of stuck together, put our shields together, we could actually form walls of defense, and as a result, they conquered the most of the known world. He uses this term about standing firm in the face of an enemy. And what's fascinating is that the enemy in this context is religious expectation. The enemy in this is when someone tells you, no, you need to do this, you're not good enough, you're not good enough to come to God, you're not right, you're out, we're in, become like us, and then maybe we'll let you in, maybe, but you're out. He said, no, don't do that. Don't be burdened by slavery again. So who are we? We're followers of Jesus. And we just believe that Jesus is the best way. And so when we make decisions and when we try our best to try to navigate through life, we ask this simple question. I know it's become a cheesy cliche. I wish it hadn't, but we do ask, what would Jesus do? And you'd be surprised what Jesus did. Not what you think Jesus would do, or not what you even told Jesus would do, but what he actually did. He loved those that nobody else loved. And he went out of his way to serve those who most felt were unworthy. And he was willing to be found in places that no one else wanted to be in, and he was willing to do things that no one else was willing to do, even to the point of being stripped naked and nailed to a tree in a garbage dump to be humiliated, so we could know the way of freedom. So where do I fit in this? This is our second core value. We will be engaged in community. And what this means is that we will love people regardless of our personal or individual preferences. For the next few core values, I'm going to just dig a little deep. I'm going to touch a couple of things that are so deeply ingrained in me and so passionate about what we as leaders believe that you just need to know where we stand. You can make your decision from there. But we have made the decision to love people despite our personal preferences. Paul said it this way in 1 Corinthians. He said, I've made myself a slave to everyone. I use this analogy, and it works for me. Have you ever been to a family function, family reunion, where there's like 3 or 4 generations represented? Okay, maybe it's a Thanksgiving, maybe it's Christmas, whatever that is. And when you sit around the dinner table, if you're a functional, healthy, loving family, let me just ask you a simple question. Of all generations, who gets to eat first? The babies, the children, the most vulnerable, right? Right? The what we would consider the weakest. The strong ones, the ones who are more mature, make sure that everybody else gets to eat what they need first before they get food, right? And if food runs out, do they panic? Do they throw a hissy fit? Do they say, no one's feeding me? No, they go get food. Because here's what we believe about love. There's no self in love. There isn't. So if you've ever said, well, at this church, they don't do it the way I want, and you think you're mature, you're wrong. You say, I'm just not getting fed. Are you kidding me? Come on. Are you kidding? In our world today with technology, the internet, Netflix, YouTube, the Bible, there is a buffet of theological discussion. You have no reason to be hungry. You have no reason to starve. It's just the fact that you think that this is all about you. And if you think it's about you, you're not going to get us. Because we're about us. And so the babies eat first. And so do I like warmed up smashed peas? No. But if that's what baby needs, that's what we're eating today. Right? If the kids need something, we make sure they get it first. So I'm just going to help you with something here, okay? When we gather as a family, this is one of those. This isn't the only thing we do. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But when we gather as a family, we think of our guests first. We think of those who are on the journey. We recognize that all of us are in different places, and we actually take ourselves out of the equation. And because of that, we desire to reach people in a way that they understand and they connect to. You see, here's what Jesus did. Jesus connected with people in 3 ways. Whenever there was a large gathering like this, he connected to them through stories. Just read it. All the parables, all the stories are told in a large context, in a large group. And then in that, he had small groups outside of that. And in these small groups, people would travel around together with Jesus, and they would learn through living together. It wasn't a theological school of ministry. It was life. And in living together in small groups, they experienced this. And then he translated that to one-on-one. So you just need to know that engage in community means we gather like this, realizing it's not about me, that this is a proclamation of who God is, and I will do whatever it takes to serve you, regardless of how I feel about it. And then I'm going to be involved in a small group because I want to grow in life. I want to learn from each other. I want to help you grow, and I need you to help me grow. And then I'm going to realize that wherever I'm living, working, playing, that's an opportunity for me to one-on-one engage people in community. So who gets to be invited into this family? Everyone. No, Bill. Not everyone. Yes, everyone. This is why our core value of non-threatening is so important to us. Here's what Paul says in 1 Corinthians. He said, I do all of these things to win as many as possible. See, we're going to invite people, no matter what their story, into our family. Now, people say, wait a minute, though. No, that can't work. Because what you have to do is you have to tell people this is what we do, and this is what you can't do, this is what you have to wear, this is what you can't wear. And they have to believe before they can belong. Actually, again, you're wrong. In our context, you get to belong long before you believe, and let me prove it to you. Especially those who think are very spiritually mature. Let me ask you this question. Did the disciples really believe before Jesus allowed them to belong and be called disciples? Not a sweet chance. One of his best buddies, Peter, one day they're walking along, and Peter, Peter doesn't believe. Jesus says, listen, I got to die. And Peter's like, no, you can't do that. And Jesus is like, yeah, I'm going to have to do it. And he's like, Peter, and they're having this argument. And then finally, Jesus says to him, get behind me, Satan. That's awkward. And he didn't even believe. He didn't believe. Or how about Thomas? Remember Thomas? We actually give him a name. We call him Doubting Thomas. Because even after Jesus dies and rises again, he says, yeah, wait, I don't believe. I'm not going to believe until I touch his hand and his side. Thomas, as a result of that experience touching Jesus, died for believing that. Then there's Judas. What do you do with Judas? The dude is stealing money the whole time he's hanging out with them, and Jesus seems to know this is going on. As a matter of fact, Jesus knows he's going to betray him, and he's having supper with the guy. And it's not a confrontation, it's not angry, he just says, well, Judas, go do what you have to do. Like, what? You see, in Jesus' world, in Jesus' mind, people get to belong long before they believe, because believing isn't a one-time decision. Believing is a journey, and it's only experienced in living in relationship. And so you just need to know that at this church, we will allow people to belong long before they believe. We will give them opportunities to serve in any capacity, except leadership at this point, because you kind of have to believe to that part. But we just let you belong. It doesn't matter your orientation. It doesn't matter your orientation. It doesn't matter what brought you here. It doesn't matter your backstory. You belong. And through that, we hope that we'll love each other to a place where we can believe. We can believe in Him, not our preferences. So what is my part? Well, that's our fourth core value: time, talent, and treasure. Jesus said it really interesting. He said, you'll know where somebody's heart is by how they spend their money. You'll know where somebody's heart is by how they spend the things that are most important to them. And in our context, that's time and treasure as well. Paul said it this way: I've become all things. Can I ask you another question? It's kind of a philosophical, life-changing question, but how much would you pay to save someone you loved? Okay, so let's say, think of the person you love the most. And let's say they are taken hostage. And let's say you get a ransom note. How much would you pay? $10? Oh, I'm sorry, $11. That's way out of my league. I can't afford that. You'd pay anything. If someone took one of my kids, I would gladly give my life to get them back. And so would you. If we really believe what we say we believe, if we really believe that there is a heaven and there is a hell, if we really believe that everyone matters to God and everyone needs to experience His love to be transformed, if we really believe a God of the impossible, what are we willing to pay? Now, I know this is kind of an awkward conversation in church. We're not supposed to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about the reality that in order to do the things that we do, in order for us to be at the Brock University campus and Niagara College campus with Red Frogs, helping students who find themselves intoxicated beyond the capacity to take care of themselves, for us to intervene in that scenario and find them safety. Because why? Because they matter. For us to go into schools where there's lower income kids who won't bring a lunch, and because they won't eat a lunch that day, will be affected negatively in their academics. And because they're affected negatively in their academics, will not have the same opportunities as others. We decided to do something about that, to go and serve lunches, so at least we could give them a fighting chance. We also decided that we're going to be all over the world, wherever there's a good cause to make a difference, whether it's providing drinking water in a village where they have no sanitation, whether it's helping those with disease and sickness find a cure. We will be actively involved in making a difference in the world. We will also provide an environment like this every week for you to be inspired. I don't know if you ever stopped and thought about it, but that costs time, talent, and treasure. And if you enjoy this, and you appreciate it, and you're a part of it, we need you to be a part of it. We need you to help us make a difference for someone. See, I used to say, and I have a good friend, he's on the board, and he lovingly corrected me, and he was right, and I respect him for it. I used to say, God doesn't need your money. And he said, Bill, that's not true. God invites us to partner with Him. And in that partnership is everything: our time, our talent, and treasure. So I'm just going to say it plainly. If you're not helping us, in this area, we can't be all that we dream to be. See, we actually have a big vision to be a part of impacting the Niagara region for good, to make a difference wherever we go, and we cannot do that without you. I know that every week or every month you get a bill for electricity and hydro. Guess what? We do too. Guess what? When we put on something like this, it takes resources. When we give backpacks away to hundreds of kids in our community who would never otherwise even know we existed, it takes resources. When we go to places in the world, it takes resources. When we're planting churches and we're a part of training leaders for the next generation, it takes resources. And so for the first time in 16 years that I've been here, we're in a bit of a situation. And I recognize that we've asked for the capital campaign, and so there's some major contributions that have kind of shifted from general giving to that. That's fine. But for the first time in 16 years, we're a little bit behind budget, about $200,000 to be exact. And I know it's just because we haven't done as much as we should to inform you, to let you know. And so I want to encourage you to be a part of this, because we believe in giving generously because God is generous. Let me just show you a graph here that shows you how we spend our resources. Every time you give, here's where your money goes. 50% goes to staffing. And you say, wow, that sounds like a lot of money. It would be if we all sat behind our desk and watched Netflix all day. But what we do is we're actively involved in the lives of people. These staff are visiting hospitals, and they're going to university campuses and into schools. They're organizing volunteers to make a difference. This represents people. And then we spend 11% on ministry, lights and all that kind of no, that's operations. Ministry is the stuff we do with our community and for you as well. 5% we try to save. 13% we give away. We just believe that if we're going to be generous, we teach generosity, we need to be generous. So we give this away. We do not benefit directly in any way from this money. We give it away to people who need it and causes we believe in. 12% for operations. That's our lights. Someone needs to fix the toilet around here. That takes a bit of money, and you're thankful for that. Operations, and then 10% mortgage. We bought this land, and so we're paying that off. And so as our core value as a part of the family, you just need to know that that's a big part of what we do, and we depend and rely on your generosity. And so if you'd like to help us, I know there's some of you in this room who could, with one check, write that deficit off. It's no big deal. But there's others of you that I know are struggling, and you think, how could I ever give? Actually, in our Game Changer series, I'm going to talk about the liberation that giving actually brings. That this is actually a way to find the freedom that Christ came to give you. The fifth and final question is, what is this going to take? Well, the first is it's going to take being relevant. The R stands for being relevant. This means we are going to reach all people. I want to just talk pretty candidly about something right now, and it's because we believe in it. I've heard, again, in our church family, some complaining. And the complaining is around the attire that some of our young adults choose when they sing up here. And so there's some concern about their shirts with holes in it. They're actually very holy. Or knees with ripped jeans with ripped knees, or earrings, or tattoos. I just have 2 words for you. Stop it. Here's what I'd like you to do with all of your petty grievances. I'd like you to go into the woods. I would like you to dig a hole. I would like you to shout into that hole. I would like you to fill that hole. I would like you to walk away happy. Here's what frustrates me. When you were 20, your mama didn't like what you wore either. When you're 20, your mama said, you're not going out in that, you're not going to dress like that, and you did. As a matter of fact, if your mama saw how you were dressed in church today, some of your mamas would be really uptight. And it doesn't matter. And until you know the heart of a person, stop judging what they choose to wear. And there's another part of this. It's called being relevant. And you may choose to live the way of the dinosaur, and that's your choice. But culture changes. It really does. And if you've lived more than 3 years, you know that's the case. It changes all the time. When we were missionaries, my dad went to Thailand to be a missionary. The first year, the whole first year, he went on the generosity of people. He spent the whole first year learning Thai. What a waste of time, right? He didn't tell a single person about Jesus. He didn't teach a single Bible college class. He didn't preach a single sermon. All he did was learn Thai. What a waste. No. Have you ever tried to talk to somebody when you don't speak their language? It doesn't work, right? So why do we think that if we don't learn the language of our culture, if we don't understand the context of the times in which we live, that we actually have anything to say? When are we going to wake up to the reality that most of the words that we use in church circles, nobody understands? When are we going to learn that most people who go to some of our churches just don't get anything that's being said? And that's wrong. So we're going to be relevant. So listen, I know you like a certain kind of music. I hate to admit it, I like classical music. Are we going to play classical music on a Sunday morning? No. Why? Because you hate it. And your friends hate it. That's my preference. So I will go to my house and I will listen to my relaxing classical music on my own, and I'm okay with that. We will speak the language of our culture to reach our culture. And again, the more mature of you should understand that, because you've chosen the way of love, and there is no self in love. So we're relevant. We're also action-oriented. Paul says it this way. He says, I will by all possible means. Now, just listen to that. Are you willing to do whatever? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? You're nodding your head, but I know what you like, because I get the emails on Monday. By all possible means. We will be action. So here's what I want you to do. I'm gonna help you again. Okay, so if you've ever had said this, something like this, the church should fill in the blank, okay? Okay, so if you've ever said that, right, and don't raise your hands, please, because it's all of you. I really think the church should fill in the blank. Okay, I'm gonna help you right now. This is gonna liberate you. This is gonna open your eyes. You're gonna be free. You're gonna float out of here like a dove. It's gonna be awesome. Who's the church? You are. So let me help you with this little task. It's really fun. It's really great. I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to write on the church should. And you just fill in all those blanks. The church should. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take that same pen and I want you to cross out the word church and I want you to put your name there. Because you are the church. See, here's what happens. We conviction dump. God convicts us of something. And so we dump it on somebody else. And we actually get angry at them when they don't live in our conviction. And we actually put on social media that they're not even a true Christian because they don't live by our conviction. When really, you are the church. And the Bible teaches us that God has given each of you a unique gift and a calling to do what you have been called to do. Not to tell Pastor Bill what to do. Why? Because Pastor Bill is really busy living his convictions. That's why. Oh, the church should pray more. You're right. Pray more. Oh, no, everyone else should, not me. Here's what I love about this, is often the people who criticize the most, when we give opportunity for them to respond, they don't even show up. They don't even show up. The people who say, we should pray more, don't even come to prayer week. I'm there. Oh, the church should feed the homeless. Yes, you should. Yes, you should. Oh, the church should, whatever. Yes, you should. We will be a church that doesn't just speak. We will be a church that acts. And when God is calling you, here's the problem with conviction dumping. You put onto someone else a gifting they don't have. And you ask them for time they don't have. Because if they're truly living in the love of God, they're busy already doing the convictions that they have. I have a conviction to coach volleyball. You may think that's a stupid conviction. I don't care. It's my conviction. I don't go around telling you you should all coach volleyball. You should. But you see, when you put it that way, how silly it sounds? So we will be relevant, we will be action-oriented, and we will be led through innovation. See, you need to know something about this church. We dream big, really big. If I had $1 for every time somebody told me, oh, you can't do that, that's impossible, I would be wealthy. You can't build a building that size. You can't do that. That's going to cost too much money. You can't have a church, build a dream of a church of 5,000 in the next 7 years. That's impossible. Good news, we got a God who loves doing the impossible. We will keep dreaming big. We're going to keep dreaming big. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep changing. I know. You're like, I don't like change. I can't take it. You're like those people going up the steep climb. We're almost there yet. No, sweetie, but keep going. It's worth it. You can do it. We will keep dreaming. We will take risks. We will work hard, and we will not settle for mediocre living. Why? Because as Paul said, we just might save some. Are we going to be able to do it for everybody? Maybe not. But we can do it for some. So how do we know if it's working? Well, that's a good question, actually. Because I know people think, oh, if we just did it this way or that way, this would all change. Listen, here, let me just give you some statistics. In the last 5 years, we have seen 370 people make a decision to follow Jesus for the very first time. That's about 50 people a year, about one person a week. So how much is it worth for us to do this next week so one more could come? In the last 5 years, we've seen 621 recommitments. People who said, I need to get more deeply involved with God, 108, 2 a week. In the last 5 years, we've seen 450 people baptized. That's about 106 a year. We've been on multiple missions trips. Just this last year, we gave 400 backpacks away, and we served 6,331 lunches in low-income schools. That's what we did. Does it work? Yeah, it does. I want to finish with one final story, and then I'm going to just challenge you. And you've seen this story many times, but it captures, in essence, what we're all about. It's a picture, actually. And this picture won the Pulitzer Prize, which is the highest award you can win for photojournalism. And what you need to know about this picture is that there's actually a story. Just happening to the right of this screen, there's a UN truck. And so there's those soldiers with the baby blue helmets, and everyone who is from this village is actually rushed to the trucks, and they're fighting. It's chaos. There's soldiers trying to keep order, trying to distribute food, and people are starving and fighting over the food. Fighting who gets it, who doesn't get it, who's in front of the line, who's at the back of the line. And so the photographer who took this picture at first was journaling the chaos. When he heard a whimper, and he turned and he saw this child. And so in his own words, he sat under a tree, lit a cigarette, and waited for the perfect moment to capture what was happening. This child is about minutes from dying. While he was sitting there, this vulture came and landed behind the child. And he wanted to wait until the vulture could spread his wings to capture that moment, but the vulture never did, so he took this picture, and he won an award. A few years after this picture was taken, the photojournalist who took it took his own life. And in his journal, he wrote, he could not reconcile himself with the fact that there was so much suffering in the world and so few people willing to do anything about it, and so it seemed hopeless. When I look at this picture, I'm reminded of why we do what we do and why I do what I do. You see, we live in a culture and a context where very few people are starving physically like this. But we live in a culture and a context where many people are starving on the inside. On the outside, they look like they have it all together, but they're dying a slow and painful death on the inside. They're empty, they are frustrated. They can't make sense of life. They feel without any purpose. They feel hopeless. See, because you're not just a physical being, you're a spiritual being. There's a part of you that needs to be fed, and the only thing that can feed that part of you is God's amazing love. And so there are many thousands, 500,000 to be exact of us in the Niagara region, many who are just like this child. And I think to myself when I look at this picture, was there nobody who loved this child? Nobody? Not one? Not one parent, not one sibling, not one neighbor, not one stranger who didn't think that maybe they should just pick up this child and take them to food? What about the photojournalist who was so consumed in gaining an award that he actually missed the opportunity to answer his own question? He could have been the resource to save this child. The tragedy is there's only one thing in this picture interested in this child: the vulture, waiting for this child to die. That vulture would do anything through all possible means to get that child. The Bible reminds us that there's an enemy who roams around like a roaring lion, seeking whom we can devour. And the truth is, there is somebody who cares about everybody in the Niagara region. We give him a name. We call him Satan or the devil. And he's quite happy for them to destroy their lives in drugs and alcohol. He's quite happy to allow their marriages to dissolve and their kids to hate them. He's quite happy to allow them to live in the poverty of cycle and believe that they'll never amount to anything. He's quite happy for them to slowly die a painful death on the inside, because when they're dead, they're his. So who's going to change the story? Who of you is going to change the story? Who of you who knows where food is are going to stop fighting over theological positions and who's right and who's wrong and who's in and who's out and who dresses appropriately and who doesn't? Who of you is going to stop worrying about things that don't matter and take those who need God's love to it? Who of us are going to stop taking pictures of the world and ranting on social media about how everything is wrong and everything is crap and everybody is awful? Who of us is going to stop fighting and ranting and taking pictures about all that's wrong with the world and instead do something about it? I don't know about you, but I want to do something about it. And I may not be able to do it for all 500,000, but maybe I can do it for one. Maybe I can do it for 10. Maybe I can do it for 100. Maybe I could do it for 5,000. Maybe together we could do it for 5,000 and 50,000. Would that be a view worth walking towards? I think it is. So we as a church are, in the words of Paul, we're going to realize that we are free and we belong to no one. Don't let anyone put a yoke of slavery on you again. You are free to live in the love that God has given you. But we are going to make ourselves a slave. We're going to put aside our preferences, the way we think it should be done. We're going to put those aside. Why? To win as many as possible. And if that means I have to become all things to all people by all possible means, if it means I have to try things no one's ever done before, aren't you tired of only 7% of our nation following Jesus? Are you tired? Do you think that if we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, that's going to change? It's not going to change. The church is dying. It's time for us to wake up and say, listen, it's not working. It's not working. So I become all things to all people, so by all possible means I might save some. And why do I do this? I do it for the sake of the gospel, which is good news, that I may share in its blessings. Listen, you need to know my heart, and I've gone over time. That's okay. I deeply care about you. I may not know you. I probably forgot your name, and I don't know your story. But that's okay, because the person next to you does. I just want to be a part of a church family that will do whatever it takes to reach people who just need to know there's a God who loves you just the way you are and loves you too much to leave you that way. And if it means we need to take risks, we're going to take the risks. And if it means we need to change everything, we will change everything. And if it means we need to invest more, we're going to invest more. Why? Because it matters. And so all I'm asking is that would you consider joining us on this journey? There'll be times when it's fun. You'll love it. You'll be meandering through the woods on boardwalks, and you'll be singing and having a great time. And there are other times when you're going to be walking up the steps, and you're going to need someone to come along and say, you can do this. Come on, don't give up. Don't pack it in. Don't leave. There'll be times when it looks like this church doesn't know what it's doing, and you're probably right sometimes. We're just trying to figure it out too. But we know where we're going. And we're going to hope. And we're going to love. This is our destination. And so if you'd love to be a part, we'd love to welcome you. Whether you've got this figured out or not, we're okay, because I don't either yet, fully. But you matter. And because you matter to God, you matter to us. God, I just pray that you'd help us understand what you're saying to us today. And I just pray that you would continue to help us be a church that's willing to do whatever it takes. As Paul said, to do all things by all possible means to reach all people. We'll do whatever it takes because it matters. It matters to you. And so because it matters to you, it matters to us. And so God, I just pray that there would be a new vision for what we are called to do, what I am called to do. And if you're here right now and you feel like there's something that should be done, I want to challenge you to do it. I want to challenge you to begin to live in it. Rally other people around you. Inspire other people by your story. Don't just sit in the sidelines. Don't settle for criticizing from a distance. Get actively involved in making a difference. Because this world desperately needs those who believe there's a God who can do the impossible. And if you're here today and you're kind of new to this conversation, but you know you need God in your life, I want to encourage you, if you're watching online right now, just to interact with your online pastor. And if you're here, I want you to know that in just a moment, there's going to be a team that comes to the front. They'd love to pray with you. If you're in a hurry, we totally get that. You can take that connection card, fill it out, and drop it off in one of the 4 boxes on your way out if you have to go quickly, or you can take it to the great big blue wall. But I want to welcome you and invite you to be a part of this family. So God, I thank you that you are great. Amen. So I bless you today with the truth that you're a part of a family that doesn't have it all figured out, but has a big vision. I bless you today with the fact that we have a dream to transform the world that we have been placed in. And I bless you with the truth that you have been equipped to do what you have been called to do wherever you go this week. I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.